advisor, is pleased to be joined by the Honorable Christopher Sontchi, who is a judge with the Bankruptcy Court for the District of Delaware. Thank you so much for being with us, Judge.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. You were on a panel today in which you were discussing Ponzi schemes. Some may have thought that after Bernie Madoff, that the Ponzi scheme went away, but that's not true. They're evolving, right?
Yeah, Ponzi schemes are like, anytime there's an opportunity to make money, people will adjust their behavior to figure out how to do that, whether it's honestly or dishonestly. So Ponzi schemes are things dishonest people do to get other people's money, and they change over time, and just when you think you have it figured out and you have it regulated, it'll shift to something else. So, and the victims are very different as well. I mean, sometimes it's, the classic idea with Madoff was it was, someone in their 50s or 60s who had a lot of wealth, who wanted to make a lot of money in the stock market, and they sort of set themselves up to be taken advantage of. But Ponzi schemes can also involve elderly people, nursing home scams, and we were discussing before we got on air, cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin has the possibility of Ponzi scheme potential. And the victims there are people in their 20s and their 30s. So it changes over time. Every time there's a new technology, it's another opportunity for somebody to rip you off.
So as long as there's greed, there's going to be some kind of a scam going on.
Exactly. And the ability to use new technology, new products to try to rip people off. I mean, the original Ponzi scheme in the 20s dealt with postage stamps. But if you look at modern times, we're talking about cryptocurrencies or nursing home contracts. I mean, it changes over time.
Are there specific sectors of the country where there are more? You mentioned the elderly people, so I'm assuming Florida, Arizona for that.
Right. So we've seen a lot of Ponzi schemes directed at elderly people lately, and you understand these are people who are worried about having enough money to pay off to survive their retirement, and everybody's worried about running out of money, and they're looking for some sort of return that can kind of that's promised to them that they know they can get, so they know they'll have their money available if they live to be 85 or 88 or 90, and that makes them very vulnerable. And they're also maybe not as connected with their families anymore, and they're isolated, and they're easy to take advantage of. So Florida, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, California, a lot of schemes in those areas.
And then you're talking about the cryptocurrency, so that's going to be...
That could be anywhere.
That could be anywhere.
Right.
Have you seen cases already of this coming out?
Well, I haven't seen the crypto stuff, which is brand new, and not seen that. We've seen a case recently in Delaware called Woodbridge that my colleague Judge Carey is the judge on, and that's real estate investments. So that's a scheme that involved people thinking they were buying mortgages on very expensive real estate throughout the country. Turns out they weren't getting what they were promised, perhaps, and they don't have the mortgage, and the chances of them getting paid in full are very unlikely at this point. And that's all over the country. But a lot of those properties were in California, et cetera.
So what's the process then when a company accused of a Ponzi scheme comes into your courtroom? What is the process?
Sure. So the reason a company that has been accused of a Ponzi scheme files bankruptcy is often to maintain control of the company, because the regulators are breathing down their neck. They aren't able to pay their bills anymore. They don't know what to do, so they run to bankruptcy court. But part of what you're trying to do is maintain control over the company. The first thing I have to do is figure out whether it's actually a fraud, because I can tell you that every bankruptcy that's ever been filed that had public shareholders, I've gotten letters saying this is a fraud from the shareholders. This is a fraud, this is a scheme. How could this happen in America? I take these letters very seriously, but the reality is most of the times it has nothing to do with fraud. It's just bad businessmen or an industry that's changing. So I have to figure out whether it's a fraud to begin with. And then once you figure out it's a fraud, you have to come to a way to restore trust among the victims, the creditors, the investors in the process of the bankruptcy, so that they can trust that what happens at the end of the day will be fair for them. And that often involves replacing management with a trustee or with some other mechanism to get the fraudsters out of control, put somebody that's actually trustworthy in control, that I can trust and that everyone else can trust, and we can build some trust with the entire process, that we can then move forward to a plan where we figure out how do we get the money in the coffers back into the coffers of the company and distribute it in a fair way.
This is a long process that requires patience, but
and
emotions,
money.
and money, and emotions run so high.
Emotions do run high, and I think as a judge, I think it's very important to give the victims an opportunity to really be heard, whether it's through a victims committee that has a role in the case, or whether it's just giving them an opportunity to come to court and tell their stories. So I had a related, it wasn't a fraud case, but I did the Catholic Diocese of Wilmington case, and these were people who had been harmed grievously as children, and they had claims against the diocese. And we spent 2 full days in court where people were just able to come in and tell their story. And it really helped the case because it gave people an opportunity to vent their frustration, tell their stories in a public way. And at the end of the day, that process helped everybody come together for a consensual plan that figured out a way to pay people off. So I think it's helpful, and I think it's helpful in Ponzi scheme cases.
All right, and finally, let's give lawyers some advice who may be coming into your courtroom and presenting their cases. What is the right way to present yourself when you're an attorney?
Well, there are a couple things. One is very helpful, is to tell the truth, which isn't always done. To be honest about your case, the strengths and the weaknesses, to be prepared, and to listen to the court. Please don't read to me. I know you're going to have a script that you want to go through, but you need to be more interactive with the court and listen to the court, because I'll tell you what I want to hear.
Yeah, when you ask a question, answer that question.
That's
right?
what I want to hear. Yeah, exactly.
As someone who was on a panel today and contributed today, and also listened to other panel discussions, why was it important to you to come to this symposium?
Okay. Well, the weather was a big part of it. No, but seriously, it had a lot to do. Today, I heard from some really brilliant people who are leaders in the field on aspects that I don't necessarily see. I see, as a judge, you see very narrow slices of cases and narrow slices of issues, as they come to you. So sometimes you lose the broader view of what's going on in the industry. So it's very helpful for those purposes, and also to meet and talk to old friends who I've known for 20, 30 years, and have an opportunity to talk about our cases that are old now. And I'm not looking for new business, but network right. In effect is really enjoyable.
Well, Judge, I really appreciate how busy you are. Thank you so much for your time.
It's my pleasure.
Appreciate it.